Welcome to a bonus episode of the Rugby Bits podcast. And I'm honored to welcome back Francisco Isaac, who has joined us a couple times before, especially for the Rugby Europe Championship. But the most important part of this, of having him back, is that we get to talk about a test match between the Springboks and Portugal. Francisco, welcome. It's so good to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me again. It's really great to be back to the bit. It's the first time this year, so I have been very blessed by your invitations, and well, it's a happy occasion because the Lobos get a shot at the box, and that's special.
Yeah, it's flipping awesome. Like I really am excited for it. It's really great. So the side of the great side of the coin for Springbok fans and everything is we blooding a whole bunch of new players, trying out new things. It's very a ridiculously exciting Springbok side that's been named. But we're up against a side that, if we're honest with ourselves, like we only watch every World Cup when they play, and other than that, we'll pick up the odd highlight here and there when someone scores a great try or makes a huge tackle. So the big thing for me, I want to go through the team. Well, not specifically the whole entire team, numbers 1 to 23, but just your take on the side and who we really need to be looking out for.
Well, so going straight to the point, Portugal doesn't have for this weekend Nicolas Martin or Martins, if you want to say it in Portuguese, because he had to go back to Montpellier, as was already agreed upon. But looking to the forwards, I think there's at least two players that you should keep an eye on. The first one is Francisco Fernandes, our loose head prop. One of the oldest player in the team but by far, and one of the most historical players playing in France in the Pro D2. And I don't know how we're going to fare in the scrum. I think the Boks have the huge favorability on their side, but until Chico Fernandes drops, Portugal will at least hold on a bit and not concede many penalties. Then I would move forward with one of my favorite players of the last 10 years, which is José Madeira, who normally he's a lock, but the last moments in the Pro D2, not the last moments since January, he's been playing as a loose forward in the blind side. And if you want to watch the game with analysis and detail and slowly, notice his work off the ball, because it's there where he is a powerhouse. He normally can fish the ball at the breakdown, or at least create a bit of chaos in the breakdown to the point that Portugal can hold on or try to dispute it. Also, his speed off after a tackle to come back in, his line out jumping, he's a true great. He's 22 and is already 30-ish caps for Portugal. So he's on the road to become one of the best players of all time for Portugal. And then, if I could go to the back line before, if you want to come in, but I cannot say Tomás Appleton, because captain, a leader, and look, for me, it's going to be, I call this the battle of Bloemfontein, because it's going to be Appleton and Lima against Andreas Terhuisen and Lukhanyo. So it's going to be massive. It's going to be incredible, because they are completely different. Terhuisen is a powerhouse, 120 kilos. If I'm not
Yeah, it's
wrong.
give or take, but yes, he's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a big boy, and a big boy with speed, and his handling skills are above the average level. So it's going to be interesting how Appleton, who normally takes this type of centers in the men's rugby Europe Championship, but they are not as quick as Esther Hoyson, how he's going to deal with it. And the next one, I would say Rodrigo Marta and Manuel Cardoso Pinto, because the Portuguese free, the two wings and fullback, if they have an inch of space and an opportunity, even if it's a very small one, they're going to take it, and they're going to try to speed up the game, go on the pace. Yeah, I think they're going to lose the ball sometimes or do silly stuff in terms of they should shoot to the line out and keep composure. but they're going to run with it. And
Mm.
if you see Manuel Cruz Pinto, I've already said this in the morning in another podcast with some guys from South Africa. If you see Portugal, if Manuel Cruz Pinto getting the ball inside the Portuguese try area, I think he will try to run at least once out of there because no one will be expecting, and he's going to try to shock everyone. But as the Springboks are well trained by the great Rossi, I think he knows exactly how Portugal plays, and he already has well warned the players to not take the foot off the gas because the only way to break Portuguese spirit is by for the first 40 minutes to just keep hindering down and pinning them and not giving options to run with the ball. If
Yeah.
South Africa wants to play a fun game, Portugal might draw some blood. It won't be enough to get like a memorable result. But I have high doubts that after what happened with Ireland, that South Africa is coming to play and to just enjoy.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think you're right. That's where the Springboks are probably weak is because they've almost basically a brand new side thrown together, but they're guys that are wanting to stand out, which is not necessarily a great thing in the Springbok environment. If you have certain roles and responsibilities, you've got to stick to them. What I will say though, as much as there's changes, there's balance. This is one of the most balanced sides. If not for the inexperience being shown, I think it looks really, really great. There's an experienced guy close to a lot of inexperienced players, but that backline is made for running. That's one thing that's for sure. Andre Esthuizen carries it up, and he's a big hard carrier. But as you mentioned, he's got better than average hands. That backline looks like they're going to run for days, and it's up to the forwards to ensure that. I think that platform needs to be set. Where I do want to chat with you, and I know you mentioned Madeira at blindside flank and how much work he does. This Springbok loose trio looks amazing. So Pepsi Buthelezi has a lot of the season, the URC season, has played at 8. I personally, I didn't think 8 was the way for him personally, even though he had a couple of really, really good games. I was quite surprised to see him put on at 6 because I thought that maybe that try him out where he's been doing really, really well. But Pepsi at 6, Dixon at 7, and Evan Roos at 8. That's a proper loose trio. Like there's some big, hard to the ball runners, but you've also got a little bit of speed and width to go wide. You guys, I think it's all really about the first 20 minutes. Like if you guys can stay competitive for the first 20 minutes, that'll be a great sort of start. That's what I'm asking is, like, especially Pinheiro at 8, at Baptista at 8. What's that loose trio like? Are they quite expansive, or what are we looking at?
Well, the problem with the loose four is that you have José Madeira, who has a lot of experience, but then Diego Pinheiro and Vasco Batista have not that much. Vasco is a seasoned player, 28 years old, but he plays in Portugal. He's now playing at a semi-pro level in the Benfica, which is the only club in Portugal that has a semi-pro background. And then Diego Pinheiro is quite young. He now is going to play for Nacional. He came from Grenoble. He's big, he's tall, but for these games, an experience gives you an edge, especially against a team like the Boks. You need loose forwards who know the dark arts of the game, or how to keep composure when you are under pressure. And I know they're going to do well the first 20 minutes, but after it, I don't know. And especially, I think Portugal Achilles heel for this match is the lock pair, Nicolas Fernandes and Duarte Rugal. Nicolas is very tall, but completely unexperienced to this level. And Duarte Rugal, he's great at the line out, and a good tackler, but that's it. I'm not saying that I don't like him. It's just compared to other guys who normally playing there, they are not at the same level, and that might be what Portugal starts to break. If we don't win our lineouts, it's going to be a problem, and we have to try to steal yours. And going back to Nicolas Martins, his absence is going to be really noticed because he normally by game has an average of 2 line-out steals, which is a lot when you go against teams like Wales or Australia, or like we did in the World Cup. Not having him, it puts pressure on Madeira and Fernandes to try and be the difference makers inside the lineout.
Hmm.
Madeira can do it. Nicolas is not that quick on the jump right now because he's inexperienced. They need time. I think it's one of those areas of the game, and I've played rugby for a long time. You can have great players, but if you're not in tune with each other, the line out and under pressure doesn't click. And against Namibia, which was a good result amazing result for Portugal, the problem was in the lineout. We lost a lot of our throw ins, and against the box, every time you give an opportunity to them, we're going to suffer. Like we're going to get behind meters and maybe concede more than 2 or 3 tries.
Yeah, so that's a massive talking point for us as well. The Springboks are after the third hooker. It's we've been on the hunt for a while now. Joseph Dwebo got a look in, and like the fans are not overly happy with him. I know, like even Marks and Mbonambi, they get their lineouts a little bit wayward. So Krobela was definitely next cab on the rank last season. I think it was last season, just before the World Cup or in the year of the World Cup. He seemed to be the front runner and would possibly get a look in. But then we've got Andre Hugo-Venter, who'll be coming off the bench. So with new hookers with the new jumpers, there's a problem there already on its own. So it's going to be quite challenging. But with Marat and Snyman, Dixon, it's going to be some good sort of targets for Grobler to hit. What's interesting is you mentioned about that line, because I think that it's a probably could be the Achilles heel for both sides. I know you've mentioned for Portugal, but I think for South Africa too, there's almost not a gamble in the selections, it's a gamble in whether it's going to work or not, and that's just purely because the guys need time in the saddle. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And that pack and the battle up front is going to be fun, and I'd love to see what Portugal bring to it, because they're well aware of what the Springboks can do. Moving on to the backs, as I mentioned, the Springbok backline is wild. Like I've never seen such a fast and exciting backline. And the big thing is Lukhanyo returning to the Springboks, which has been long awaited. I think he missed about 10 or so games through injury. Kind of made a little bit of a comeback, didn't make the Springbok squad, and then came through to the end, but didn't get a game. And obviously, Manny Libok. Manny's everyone knows that he's the second choice 10 to the Springboks purely for what happened last year. We haven't really seen him get in the mix for the Springboks this year yet. But I'm just hoping that he doesn't go out and kind of just go mad because he feels like he needs to prove a point. And I don't see that happening. He totally has the backs to do it, though. Andre Esterhuizen is going to always draw 1 or 2 players, put them on their heels, and then Lukhanyo brains and set up on attack and defense is probably second to none. But the big thing for me, Mapimpi and Arendse with Fassi, the back three, is probably one of the scariest prospects for Portugal, because they're not young guys that need to prove a point. I think Fassi's the only one that really needs to maybe prove himself, and he did it against Wales, and he's getting another chance. And then you got the likes of Esterhuizen and in the midfield. Like there's cool heads all around. Everyone's got experience. Everyone barring Fassi's been to the World Cup. And yeah, it's big. How are you feeling about that back?
Look, it's when I saw the backline team announced by the Box, I was like, oh, Razi wants to have a bit of fun with this game. He's going to take serious on the pack, but I think and this is why. And sorry for the side conversation. This is why I like Razi. Razi looks to teams and adapts to it. He knows Portugal likes to play quick pace rugby from the backs, and Portugal normally loves to use the wings and the fullback as an immediate first option on attack. So we normally, where teams think first goes the center, then goes loose forward. You sometimes Portugal puts a wing or a fullback in the middle just to to try to speed up the game, and that helps. But now with Fassi, uh, as a fullback, and Mapimpi, which is one of my favorite players, and Aranza, which I think is one of the most lethal players out there, it puts a lot of pressure on the back three. I think the thing here is the kicking game. Can the three guys from the Springboks keep the ball and not kick, or they're going to kick and wait Portugal to do a mistake? And that's going to be an interesting analysis to do, because normally Georgia doesn't like to give ball to Portugal, doesn't like to kick to the Portuguese wingers, because on 10 opportunities, 7 can lead to a try. So it's complicated. But with the Springboks, it depends. I have seen how you played against Ireland. It didn't, in the end, you didn't win. But the kick and chase done by the back three was cool. And with Portugal, with players that are love to rush things, it can end badly. The thing is, with Lukhanyo in the centers, I know what Razi wants to do. He wants to speed the game immediately after a scrum or a lineout. No options to give no options of Portugal to think that we can challenge this in a breakdown. No, he wants to speed the game to catch off guard our wings. They're good tacklers, but they are not the greatest, and that might be another point where the Springboks can start to do some damage from the start.
Yeah, that's a great point that you talk about. Jared and I were chatting a little while back, and he mentioned to me that you'll see that Lukhanyo very seldom gets involved, like gets caught with ball in hand if he has to, because essentially you want touch points on him more than anything, even if it's just a touch pass or anything, just because of his vision and the way he manages things. So yeah, Francisco, you bang on there. Moving to one of the big things, and I think probably the space that Portugal will struggle the most is on the bench. So come the last half an hour, 40 minutes, half an hour of the game. The bonus for Portugal is that the backline players for Springboks are relatively inexperienced, barring Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, who's now on his third-ish. He's on his fourth test, but he obviously had quite a 78 minutes against Ireland due to Willie Leroux's injury. But Morne van der Berg and Koen Horn, both on debut. Those guys are runners too. And if you add Ulrich Loh, Ruan Venter to the mix, like there's balance all over the show. What's interesting is, I don't know how much you've seen of Feinberg-Mngomezulu. I like him at 10. I think the idea of him playing 10 more often than not is more favorable in the Springbok setup at the moment. But I don't know if they're going to set him up to be a 10 and then move him to, say, 12, just so we've got that 10 option, or if they're going to just move him around and he's going to fill that Damian Willemse role where it's 10, 12, 15. I think that's more likely to happen in the future. How much have you seen of Sacha? And I'm pretty sure you are impressed, but anything you've picked up on his game?
Well, Sacha has something that, well, Liebok has the same, but it's the speed. It's the speed with the ball in his hand. Before the ball gets to his hands, he knows already what he wants to do in terms of running with it. If you compare to Pollard, I think Pollard, most of the times when the ball before get to his hands, he's thinking tactically. So how do we going to kick? How are we going to pass? But Sacha is different. Sacha wants to run with it. Sacha wants to put energy on the ball reception and after and try to break immediately the center pairing, or at least avoid the loose forwards that come from a line out or scrum or breakdown, to hinder him down or pin him down before he has time to do something. And against Portugal, coming from the bench, for me, makes sense he came to a fly half position, because we are lacking our starting loose forward trio. So Granata is not here, Wall is not here, Martins is not here. So Sacha will have an opportunity to explore more opportunities with it as a 10. As I said, to break Portuguese spirit is the first 20 minutes, but in the second half, you have the bomb squad as well. It's not the bomb squad; it's 5-3, but is also always threatening the fourth pack that the Box have, and it's going to break Portugal because of the two props we have. They have very David Costa's experience, but he's had the season logged off from the international duties, more resting, recovering from the World Cup, etc. And with Sacha, I think if you're going to dominate in the forwards in second half, he's going to have a field day with Portugal, even with Appleton and Lima in it. But because Sacha, I'm sure he's going to try to go to Appleton and to Lima, concentrate them, and then with your backline so quick as it is, pull the ball and just play it, and you're going to explore our wings, which is one of our problems at the moment, as we saw against Georgia. If I can break down to it, Georgia won the men's rugby Europe Championship final because from the first minute they decided, okay, the first 30 minutes we have to be physical monsters, even if the scoreline doesn't indulge us. Because in the second half, with the Portuguese more tired, we're starting to go to the moles, to go and speed the game, and that's what they did. And the second half, they kept the number 10, Luka Matkava, which is very similar to Sacha. Every time the Portuguese pack was completely tired, every time he went to the line of contact, speed the game, we were caught off guard, and it was a try more than once, or at least we considered the penalty and went backwards. And Sacha coming from the bench, I think is going to be that last knife that's going to break Portugal apart if Portugal cannot hold themselves in defense. It all depends on their mindset and if they accept the challenge and the vibe. I think that's the main thing that we lost in the Men's Rugby Europe Championship, and now we're regaining it with Mannix, is that spirited or to never give up, to keep going and going, something that Lajski brought. And it's very similar what the type of culture that Razi put in the Springboks once he came in. So players to not look down, look up, even if you concede a try. Go forward. Yeah, you concede a penalty, you'll do better next. No shouting, move forward. And Mannix is like this at the moment. Positive vibes, positive talk, and go forward. And it's going to be interesting because the Boks are going to be relentless. They're going to, if the Boks start to have fun in the game, it's going to be chaos for everyone, but it's going to be one of those matches that everyone wants to rewatch it again and again.
Yeah, it could be interesting. One last thing I'm going to be touching on, I think it deserves a mention, but soon to be the 66th Springbok captain, Salman Murat, has been named not only as a starter but as the captain. It's quite obviously a big day for him and his family, but it's an amazing result. I think it's pretty awesome. A lot of people were hoping for Lukhanyo, but Salman Murat has very clearly come through at provincial level, at age group level, and school as captain. And he's been earmarked as by Rassi and co as someone that's going to be in the leadership group. Francisco, just wrapping up. I know you've touched on a couple of times, but where do you feel would be a great point for Portugal to end off this game in terms of something that they'd like to achieve, or where would you think they'd like to be competitive? What would be something where they would go back home and feel like they've done what they're supposed to do?
So, realistic expectation, I would say lose by less than 40 points for me at the moment. I know it's not a full-fledged top team from the box, but is a world champ. Well, look to the back line, and it's a full-fledged World Cup winning back line. You have Sneeman, which we didn't talk about here in the podcast, or Thomas Dutoit, who another one that is there's a legend in the game. So for Portugal, I think a good result will be less than 40, a great result will be less than 30, and a superb result will be like less than 18. And we until the last minute of the match, we trying to get to the try line and to score another try. That's the thing. If Portugal scores two tries, if scores 2 tries and lose by 70 points, it's not good. To be honest, it's the same thing when it was All Blacks in 2007. We were a full amateur side with 3 players from France. It's different now. It has a combo of pros and semi-pros and amateur. So we cannot. A bad result would be to lose above 50 points. We
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
So it'll be. I think for most of the fans, it's not about the result, but the exhibition to show what
Yes.
Portugal can do, um, to accept the challenge, as I said before, to embrace the spirit of the game, because the Boks normally are like going against, if you want to, against a Spartan cohort of spikemen. It's almost impossible to break them apart. So that's great, because if you are able to take one or two down, and which are going to be like scoring some tries, it's going to be massive for the sport. And for example, the game is going to be shown in Portugal in Canal 11, Channel 11, which is normally a football or for the national teams channel driven by the government. It's a big channel. It's for the first time we're going to have a game in it. So
Wow.
they're going to show, yeah. So people are like impressed. And look, we're going to be one of the few teams in the next 4 years have a chance to play against the Boks at their home. I remember when the game was announced and everybody's saying to me, it's going to be in Bloemfontein. It's not a great city. And I say, I don't care. I don't care at all, because it's the Boks. It's like the golden nuggets for me. And mainly because we have a large Portuguese South African community living in South Africa that simply loves everything that's about Portugal and about South Africa, and just, well, they're going to do things unspeakable. Like, I know people who's going from Cape Town from car that is how many hours to Bloemfontein?
Actually, you caught me a little. I think it's 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours driving.
Yeah, I know people who was going to drive from Johannesburg by bus with like 2,000 people. It's insane, and doing parties and so on. And that's, I think, for me, that's enough to schedule this type of game. Of course, for Portugal is great because we can sell this. We play against world champions, and when your team was announced, everyone not, but I'll say like 30% of the Portuguese rugby fan base who is online start to say, "Oh, unfortunately, it's not the top team. There's no Faf, there's no 100 players." Say, "Come on, you have Mani Livok, Cobos Reina, who played the World Cup. They started in the World Cup like 4 games
Yes.
at least."
Yeah. So Manny started every game in the World Cup, barring the final and one group game.
Exactly. And you have Cobos Reina. You have who was close to be the World Rugby's best player of the year, 2019.
19.
You have Oosterhuizen, for me, was always one of the greatest centers. You have Priel now and the Allende, and then you have Mapimpi, who for me has I cannot tell the chasing the sun thing, because I cry every time when I think about that part of Razi. And you have also Aranza, for me, one of the most fantastic players in URC. And I start explain to people, look, you have to be happy because they accepted to play with us. Razi could have said, we don't want to play against Portugal. Why are we going to lose our time to play against Portugal? But South Africa did open the door, said, okay, you coming here, and it's going to be great. I think this is the way to sell the game, and I think people are going to be happy with it.
Yeah. Oh, Francisco, what an amazing end to the podcast, and thank you very much. It's so great to see your passion and love for the game, and we all pretty pumped for this as well. Like it's we're well aware it's Portugal, but there's so much in it, and we also well aware of the enormity of the game for the Portuguese rugby fans. And you saying that it's on free to air and on a massive channel, it shows what it means, and that's essentially what we want to achieve. We want to expose and we want to be involved in all this. So Francisco, thank you so much again. We really appreciate it. We look forward to chatting you again. It's always great having you on board, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck to the Boks.
Thank you. Bye bye.